So now we're in the Blue Moon Cycle showroom, and I just want to share some of the features on this really cool bicycle pacer motorcycle, 1935 Meyer Bach. Louis Meyer was the first guy to build one of these. He developed the engine. I understand he was an aeronautical engineer at Peugeot, and the Peugeot factory may have lent a hand in casting the cylinders and whatnot, but he made 30 of these 2400cc V-twins. They were only made for bicycle pacers. They weren't used in motorcycles or cars or anything else. And it's a overhead valve engine, has a huge flywheel that's got to be 16 inches in diameter. And this is so they could bring it down to almost a walking pace. There's no gearbox, there's no clutch. So anytime this thing was on the track, it was running. But the flywheel allows them to come way down to low speeds for starting. In fact, I'm told they put it up at the high bank and they let it go. And as it went down the bank, he would engage the ignition. There's a compression release. So he would put the compression on, engage the ignition, and then the engine would fire up. And it could go very slow, just a couple RPMs for slow speed, and then he could throttle it up. So over here, there's a stop on this throttle. It's a click stop, and that would allow him to set the throttle for to maintain a very solid, steady speed. We have open exhaust here, Zenith carburetor, big leather belt, pulley up here, wooden pulley in the back, extra heavy-duty frame, and then back here is the roller. Now they didn't tow the motorcycle, they could the bicycle. They didn't even want to touch the bicycle, but the bicycle would come so close sometimes that they would hit the front wheel. So this is allowed to spin. So if the bicycle hits the wheel, it's not going to lock up the bicycle wheel. These bicycles went up to 75 miles an hour behind this guy. And he was a big guy. He sat back here. That's why the seat is so far back. The handlebars are so long, because they want him as close to the bicycle as possible. So he'd get on here, and he'd be sitting way back here like this, big leather suit, helmet with ear things and things on the helmet to make as much wind resistance as possible to protect this bicycle guy, keep him in a bit of a vacuum back there. Come on this side, I'll show you some more things. Here we have a rear brake. It's very rudimentary. It's just a big strap that goes around this pulley. I would say it might have slowed it down. It certainly didn't stop it very fast because it's just a thin little friction material. That's all the brake. There's no clutch. There's no gearbox. It's always engaged. This is the compression release. This comes down here and it lifts the push rod. You see here? It's lifting the push rod, is opening that valve. And this is a overhead valve, exposed push rods. Timing case, this is all handmade. This whole engine was handmade. Back here is the drive for the magneto. The magneto's back here. So it's a little primitive, but the interesting thing is they used these up until the 1960s. And 1935, so this had about 35, maybe 40 years of use on the track. They ran it in Amsterdam on the track that was made for the Olympics. And Nopi, the guy that drove this, Nopi Koch, was a 1950s world champion bicycle rider, and then he became the pace driver. And he brought several athletes to world champion status using this as the pace motorcycle. So I just love that this bike has the history. The patina is awesome, and it's a thing that not many people know about because it wasn't done in the U.S. In the U.S. there were board track racing motorcycles, but in Europe the board tracks were not really so much motorcycles but more bicycles, bicycle velodromes. And this is how they got the high speed on the bicycles. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I do, and stay tuned because we're going to show this motorcycle running. That's our next goal.